Hello friends, welcome to Biju Gayu's Teaching Cafe. I hope you are staying happy at your home. Friends, this is a small video lecture, a part of our lecture series on approaches to political science. So we have discussed modern approach. Today, this is another dimension of the modern approach. The title of this lecture is Behaviouralism in Political Science. So you know that political science was caught up with a serious problem for about centuries. The problem is that it paid little attention to study the actual behavior of people, individuals in situations. I can tell you an example of this problem by which political science failed to understand the complexities and the intricacies of life in the modern world. You know, Adolf Hitler and his personal life was mysterious and intriguing. The world know little about the personal side of Adolf Hitler. The fact is that he had a number of love affairs, female lovers, and he had a deep aversion towards homosexuality. He had a secret lover called Eva Braun. Eva Braun was a long-time companion of Adolf Hitler. Hitler indeed created a public image that I'm a celibate man, I'm not interested in domestic or family life. Such an image was created by Hitler. So he created an image that he wanted to lead a life fully committed to the political cause or the political mission he represents, and he wanted to lead the nation of Nazi Germany. But his relationship with Eva Braun, which lasted for almost nearly 14 years, it was hidden from the public. Eva Braun's biographer, his name was Heike Godmaker. Noted that the couple enjoyed a normal sexual life. In the early morning of April 29, 1945, as the Soviet troops closed in the bunker of Hitler, Hitler had already married Eva Braun. The marriage took place after 13 years of dating. So less than 40 hours after their marriage, the newlywed couple committed suicide. And Hitler had written a very small will letter. In the will, Hitler stated that Eva goes to death with me as my wife according to her own desires. That was part of his last will. See, the German historian, as I told you a short while ago, Heike B. Godmaker, he was the author of Eva Braun, Life with Hitler, tries to answer some of the key questions about Nazi leader's wife and Hitler also. Was Eva truly in love with Hitler? What was the role in the Nazi party? And just how she aware was of the Nazi atrocities? The history of the world might be very, very different. Friends, the history of the world look different today. Had political science really studied the behavior of leaders like Hitler. Or I can tell you another example. Harry S. Truman, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin on July 25, 1945 had the famous triple handshake just weeks after the surrender of Nazi Germany in World War II. The Allied powers met in Potsdam in Germany. President Harry S. Truman, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin posed for a smiling triple handshake. This handshake was said to be one of the rarest or the famous handshakes in the history of modern nation states. But political science failed miserably, desperately failed to anticipate that within few months after this Potsdam conference and handshake, the historic handshake, the world will witness Cold War in which Soviet Union and USA will become intense enemies for about decades. The problem with the political science, friends, is that the methodologies of political science is outdated. Political science adopted the classical way of seeing and viewing. So that's why there is no instrument in the methodologies of political science to look at gestures, body language, or handshake, or even a picture of a leader and analyze the mood, the background, and predict or analyze political events by looking at these gestures or body languages or even words. So these are not, acceptable to the classical way of seeing and interpreting in political science. So here comes the significance of our title, Behaviouralism. Behaviouralism adopted some new methods, some new insight on how to study political phenomena. So it is not an easy task to define what exactly is political behavior or behavioralism in a precise way. But in a sense, I can tell you that it is a movement. It is a movement within political science. So it was a reaction. Behavioralism was a reaction against the classical tradition. There were growing dissatisfaction about the prevailing methods in political science among the practitioners of political science, and they called for a new movement in the subject. So this behavioral movement insists on analyzing observable behavior of political actors. So you should study only the observable behavior of political actors or individuals. That said, whether God exists, what is human nature, is man good or bad, these are all intellectual abstractions according to behavioralism, which cannot be measured nor observed. Or the ancient Greeks or the classical tradition of political science was preoccupied with the good government, ideal rulers, best citizens, best constitutions. But these are not observable because what is best or good or bad are notions that varies between people to people. So no universally valid theories are possible in these areas. So these are not observable. Hence it is not the subject matter of political science according to behavioralism. So political scientists by 1950s believed that political science needs to study only observable phenomena. So it implies that you should search for realism with a scientific outlook. So in a sense, behavioralism marks the departure of political science from the ancient way of seeing and viewing. It said a goodbye to political science, old way of doing political science, in which it studied law, ideology, government, constitution, institutions. Rather, behavioralism tries to locate the dynamics of political forces, the dynamics of forces that shape political behavior, which are located in culture, social classes, socio-economic settings, political elites, or even international affairs. In the old way, political science never studied these aspects. Political science in the old way study only institutions, government, rulers, laws. Now things have changed. Now we are going to look at social classes, how social classes are formed, what is the socio-economic structure of the society, how elites are being shaped, how international affairs affect local politics. So, two important aspects of behavioralism is that it is a movement in which only observable behavior of individuals are studied. It's first one, it's a movement in political science. Second, only observable behavior is studied. It demands for an in-depth analysis of the political behavior of individuals. So it insists that it insists that social theory can be and should be constructed only on the basis of observable behavior, because only such behavior provides measurable or quantifiable data for research. So it is an attempt to improve our understanding of politics by seeking to explain the empirical aspects of political life by means of methods, theories, and criteria of proof that are acceptable according to the canons, conventions, and assumptions of modern empirical sciences. So, let us understand the origin and development of behavioralism. So, though it is generally held that behavioralism or political behavior in politics is the product of Second World War, its true origin can be dated back even before World War I. Behavioralism has been one of the most important developments in political science during the 20th century. It was a development in political science during the 20th century. The study of political behavior started in USA when Graham Wells and Arthur F. Burnley advocated the study of actual phenomenon of politics in 1908. Graham Wells held that politics without the study of psychology of individuals was meaningless. So he advocated for not to study political phenomena, you should apply psychological methods and you should analyze and observe the behavior of individuals through psychological tools. Arthur Burnley highlighted psychology of individuals are very important when you study social groups. So they put emphasis on the study of psychological aspects. So it has been asserted that after the World War I, a number of political scientists of USA were interested in studying political behavior empirically. And for that purpose, they adopted advanced scientific methods which ultimately led to a new concept called behavioralism. That was in the beginning of 20th century. So the first methodological approach received a better treatment. The subject got a better treatment in the hands of Frank Kent, who was not a political scientist but a journalist. He wrote a book titled Political Behavior. The heretofore, the unwritten laws, customs, and principles of politics as practiced in the United States. A long title. He arrived at the conclusion that the fabric of political concepts was built upon wrong assumptions or wrong notions. A better analysis of political science must take note of the political behavior of individuals as demonstrated by citizens. So Kent's book was published in the year 1928. After 9 years, that is in 1937, that Herbert Tingston wrote a book which was entitled Political Behavior. studies in elections statistics. So Tingston's book was a more direct and that dealt with advanced analysis of political behavior. So the subject is developing. The movement is growing with a lot of intellectual inputs from various writers and commentators. So Tingston provided a great impetus for behavioral movement in USA. And then comes Bernard Crick with his famous book, The American Science of Politics, Its Origin and Conditions. He says that due to the very nature of American people, behavioralism flourished in that country. So a number of American political scientists later on devoted their energy and intellect to investigate political behavior in the light of this new movement. So Charles E. Merriam was another renowned exponent of behavioralism. So during the 1930s, Charles E. Merriam provided a bold leadership for a comprehensive investigation of political science in the new perspective of empirical analysis. So Charles E. Merriam was not alone in this movement. A large number of scholars established themselves as top political scientists were closely associated with behavioral movement. Among them were Harold Laswell, V.O. Key and Gabriel Almond. So they were all under the direct influence of Charles E. Merriam. So Charles E. Merriam was teaching at the University of Chicago, where Laswell, V.O. Key and Gabriel Almond were his students. So naturally, Charles E. Merriam will influence the minds of these top class political scientists in USA. So, behind the growth of behavioralism in USA, there lies remarkable contribution of a large number of European scholars. See, in the 1930s, the Nazi repression in Germany compelled many political scientists from Europe to migrate to USA because the USA had a liberal intellectual atmosphere. So these scholars who migrated from Europe to America had also spent their intellect and energy to push behavioral movement in political science. So all of these scholars emphasize the relevance of sociological perspective, psychological perspectives, behavioral perspectives in the study of political phenomena. So after World War II, in the United States, a committee named Political Behavior was set up. Its purpose was to study political behavior of voters in USA. So, in the field of development of behavioralism, the contribution of certain institutions like Political Behavior, a committee, and certain financial institutions should not be overlooked. Because in Europe, there were no financial support to scholars, but in USA, there were some interesting and renowned philanthropical organizations which contributed immensely for research in political science. Thereby, behavioralism as a movement got its fillip from financial institutions also. So in the 50s and 60s, David Easton, Gabriel Almond, Harold Laswell and many others put certain insight into behavioral movement. So all this radically changed the very fabric of political theory, the very fabric of social theories in political science. So in the 1970s, scholars in Europe also took interest in the behavioral movement. Today, behavioralism is not only an important theoretical concept in political science, it constitutes a very important subject matter. But it's a fact that by 1970s, you can see that there are new problems emerged. Cold War got a new dimension. New issues emerged, environmental issues emerged. Terrorism became a problem, climate change. So these new challenges had also questioned the relevance of behavioral movement. But anyway, behavioral movement was an attempt to make political science really a natural science. It was an attempt to bring in the methods and perspectives of natural science into political science. It was an attempt to make political science look like a real science. So it has been defined differently by different writers. For example, Samuel J. Eldersweld defined behavioralism as systematic search for political patterns. Systematic search for political patterns through formulation of empirical theory and the technical analysis and verification thereof. Robert et al. Says it is an attempt to improve our understanding of points by seeking to explain the empirical aspects of political life by means of methods, theories, and criteria of proof that are acceptable according to the canons and assumptions of modern political science. David Truman, another interesting writer, in his famous essay published in 1951, defined behavioralism as a term for political behavior that comprehends those actions and interactions of men and groups which are involved in the process of governing. Similarly, David Easton observed it is an attempt to build a science of politics modeled after the methodological assumptions of natural sciences. According to Committee of Political Behavior, I told you a short while ago, there is a setup in America that says the ultimate goal of the student of political behavior is the development of a science of the political process. To develop a science of the political process. According to Dwight Waldo, behavioralism was not and is not a clear and firm creed, an agreed upon set of postulates and rules. It's a set of postulates and rules according to Dwight Waldo. Anyway, some general characteristics of behavioralism can be stated like this. It's a movement, a protest against inadequacies of conventional political science. It is led by American political scientists. It has made individual the core attention of the study in politics. It stresses the special importance of scientific outlook. It stresses on objectivity in research. It is considered a methodological revolution in political science. It is considered an intellectual movement. It emphasizes on interdisciplinary, that is, blending political science with other social sciences like history, economics, sociology, psychology, so on and so forth. So its aim is to build a scientific theory. Its aim is to study only observable phenomena. Its aim is to propose a scientific social theory. Its aim was to build this area of study really look like a natural science. Friends, this is a small lecture, a 23-minute lecture. So I am going to wind up this lecture. If you have any doubts or if you need any clarification, please drop a line to this YouTube comment section. Thank you.